Off screen, I very quickly ran into the fourth world and made a mad dash to a Crescent Falchion +1. This is a lootable item that's just available on the ground, already set down an upgrade path that adds magic stat scaling to a weapon. The blue aura around my character is due to the fact that Crescent weapons also restore MP very slowly. Now it's time to head to the Archstone of the Demon Phalanx. Past the huge Boletarian castle gates lies the cliff pathway, now a feeding ground for dragons, which leads to the inner ward, where the knights live. Here we'll encounter a lot, and I do mean a lot, of hoplites scattered haphazardly throughout the room. You'll see very quickly how much the Crescent Falchion helps our damage output, given that we started with a higher than average magic stat, and the fact that this looted Falchion has already been upgraded once. The second level of World 1 is going to be pretty speedy. This ease does not last throughout the entire game, however, not by a long shot. Hoplites have a very large chance of dropping shards of sharp stone. As our primary weapon for this playthrough is already down a certain upgrade path, we only have use for one type, but I still would like to tell you about what each upgrade ore does as we reach them. Sharpstone is the, for lack of a better word, standard upgrade path, which doesn't add any effects or change the stat scaling of a weapon. It simply takes the properties of the original weapon and makes them stronger. I'm eager to go up and into the winding path from before, but there's a small slope to the side with an item that we should visit.
Hello? You yonder. Over here. It's me, Ostrava. Look at me. Again surrounded by evil warriors. Could you, perhaps, help me one last time? Clear out the soldiers at the far end of this passage, if it pleases you. The Lord's Path, just down yonder, has degenerated into a feeding ground for flying dragons. Have your wits about you.
After that, we're unable to speak with Ostrava more. The wooden gate he's crouching behind is blocking both his exit and our entrance, so we'll have to find another way to get to the passage. It's a wonder why the enemies are blocking him off, but not attacking him. I've always thought that this was because he was hiding in the darkness. Maybe he slipped by unnoticed, but was caught off guard by the fact that the gate was shut. And there it is. The orange dragon is back and up to his usual fire-breathing antics. Upon observation, a player might note that if they stay behind the smoldering pile of corpses, they stay unsinged. It's a nice little visual indicator, but still not a very suitable warning for first-time visitors. The loot here isn't really worth our time, by the way. I believe it's a nondescript spear weapon, and perhaps a stone of ephemeral eyes, neither of which we absolutely need. We could try to run across this next bridge, but it'd be damn near suicide. I don't believe that it's possible to make it without being engulfed in the orange dragon's flame, and there's more loot to grab on the other way besides. On this right body we find a wooden catalyst, the very same one that we started with for choosing the magician class. I'm also going to take this time to point out the rocky ledge, which should look familiar to you. It's where we picked up the shards of archstone and the moongrass. The blue dragon seems to have flown away, though. Downstairs we find a tunnel passage not is similar to the one we saw Ostrava trapped in. Because of that, we'll head left and do some investigating. This area is extremely dark, as is usually the case for places without access to sunlight, and it makes the enemies ahead of you a ways extremely hard to see. The only reason I avoided that arrow was because I remember it surprising me before.
Thank you. That makes twice. Thanks to you, I can now forge ahead. This is a token of my gratitude. Please accept it. This is bad. Not a single person left. Why on earth? How did all of this happen? Father!
We have freed Ostrava once more and learned nothing save for the fact that he is greatly upset about Boletaria's current state of affairs, as he calls out in anguish to his father. As a reward for our efforts, he gives us Dark Moon Grass, which is sadly an item so useful that it's useless. It completely restores 100% of your HP and rids you of all status ailments. Oh, hello to you as well, Dragon. This far-off cityscape, tucked tightly at the bottom of the valley, is probably bar none my favorite unreachable destination in the entire series. Which sounds a little silly, but hear me out. The scale of it is just gigantic. Even in spite of the distance, there's a ton of variation in the sizes and shapes of the buildings. It does a lot to give credence to the idea that Boletaria truly was a massive kingdom with droves of citizens, at least before the colorless fog drifted in. For me, it's incredibly easy and rewarding to imagine people going about their low fantasy days within that city down there. It's just a shame that we're never able to fully explore it. These dogs are just brutal. Flame Toss is extremely useful here, as there are a ton of dogs and they seem hesitant to attack you when you're at a distance like this.
We meet again. Fancy that. Hope you find something that suits you. It is the end of great...
The Dreggling Merchant doesn't have much more to offer us than he did in the previous level, even in the way of expository dialogue, but I still appreciate the fact that he's here all the same.
Odd times, eh? I'm sure you'll turn things around.
After these stairs, you'll see us come up within the tower across the way that we opted not to go previously. Before entering the tower itself, though, we're going to head up and loot a bow. Once again, the bow would be useful had I chosen to play a different type of character, but I didn't, so we won't really be using it. This group was rather large, and probably assumed they had strength in numbers. It's too bad they didn't realize that they were slow as molasses. What a fool I am. I always forget if you're supposed to stay behind the cart or its supports, and I'm always wrong. Alright, here we are, back where we're supposed to be, and at a safe distance. On this run, I am able to risk grabbing the items due to the short length of the walkway. knights are here. I know that during the tutorial I talked about how rarely I'd parry, but it's just too fun to do it against blue-eye knights because they look so menacing, then you can just take them down like that. Sadly, this door is unpassable as of right now. It'll be quite some time before we unlock it, but try to keep it in mind as best you can. Our first crystal lizard wasn't much of a challenge, which is good because many of them can be very elusive. It dropped shards of hardstone, which, funnily enough, is a second standard upgrade path for different types of weapons. Up top, we defeat 2 crossbow users that were a non-factor in our approach for healing items and a stone of ephemeral eyes. Once again, we can see through the fog. Let's take a gander at what's on the other side. Tower Knight is one of Demon Souls' most memorable bosses. The soundtrack, the arena, and of course the boss itself all come together in a very unique fashion to make this possible, which is interesting because the first thing you learn to do is ignore the boss as best you can and run up the stairs on either side here. Coming out to where the archers were, it's very easy to feel relieved. While the introductory cutscene very clearly showed at least 5 archers on either side, there are actually only 3 that are easy enough to get rid of. I can only imagine Tower Knight's frustration as you get rid of his assistants. 6 years after the original release of Demon Souls, From Software utilized the exact same type of encounter in a game that wasn't even technically a part of the Souls series, Bloodborne. I'll avoid saying anything other than that to avoid spoilers, but it was a very welcome throwback. With the nuisances out of the picture, we can take on Tower Knight one-on-one. If you do more full-on sprinting to avoid attacks as opposed to dodge rolling, Tower Knight's arsenal of wide-reaching moves is pretty easily circumvented. Relying on the damage of Soul Arrow, it only takes 3 shots to weaken one of his legs, and then another 3 for the other. The shield smash is my favorite move of his. I love seeing the debris rise up from the ground. Now that his legs have failed him, it's time to let the Crescent Falchion do its thing. I know that a lot of people are prone to rag on the series, specifically Dark Souls 2, for having boss fights that are quote-unquote just big guys in armor, but Tower Knight is the reason that I will literally never mind those types of fights. Beyond the newly placed Archstone and the Iron Demon Soul, you can see a rather intimidating fog gate blocking our path. Let's check it out. A thick, colorless fog holds you back. Only those who have slain an archdemon may pass beyond this point. An archdemon in this case is the final boss of a given world, and what this boils down to is the game forcing you to not just continue playing through the first world to completion. Given the contents of the levels that remain in World 1, this is a very good decision, and we actually won't be completing World 1 until the very end of the game, after we've defeated the archdemons of all 4 other archstones. With all the loot in our pocket, let's return to the Nexus and talk to our nice crestfallen friend.
Have you met the last surviving Monumental? Those fools revived the old one on a whim. And now they've trapped us here in the Nexus in a desperate attempt to undo their mistake. It's all a travesty if you ask me. Well, you found yourself a demon soul, did you? I'm impressed, yes. Indeed I am. Stay the path, and you will soon be a monster yourself. Can't you see you've fallen for their trap? You... Have you seen my corporeal flesh? Has my body gone rotten? I'm sorry. Please leave me alone. Who are you? I don't remember anything.
Let's deposit the bit of ore that we've received and lighten our load of any excess baggage.
Thank goodness you are safe. I was worried sick about you. We are indebted to you, for you fight on our behalf.
Thou seekest soul power, then...
We're going to only focus on intelligence for this level session in order to get our spell capacity up to 4 slots, and then call it a day for this video. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great rest of your morning, day, or night, and I'll see you next time.